Hello, everybody. We're just going to get started in 30 seconds to let some stragglers dial in, so sit tight and we'll get started in just a moment. Thanks for joining. My name is Cassie Rowe, Content Marketing Specialist at 451 Research. Today's webinar, Assessing the Impact of Data Science on the Analytics Landscape, will be presented by Matt Aslett, Research Director for Data Platforms and Analytics. Before we dive into the content, I just want to give a brief introduction to 451 Research for those of you that aren't familiar with us. 451 Research is a top-tier research and advisory firm headquartered in New York City. Our team of more than 100 analysts cover more than 2,000 technology vendors and service providers every year. 451 Research provides unique insight into emerging disruptive technologies and the companies taking them to market, and delivering that insight via syndicated research, advisory services, and live events around the world. Before I turn it over to today's presenter, a few housekeeping items. The webinar slides can be downloaded in the Attachments and Links section of the BrightTalk platform. You can also submit questions to the presenter in the same platform for the Q&A at the end of this webinar. And this webinar is being recorded, and it will be available immediately after today's session. Without further ado, I will turn it over to Matt.
Thanks, Cassandra. Thank you, everybody, for joining this webinar. So, yeah, I'm going to be presenting today on the topic of data science and analytics, and primarily with the aim of introducing everybody to our recategorization of the basically the data science and analytics market. It's an area obviously we've been tracking for many years within 451 Research. I'd say actually since day one of the company, and it's evolved over that time, and we'll talk about that and how we have adjusted our view of the market this year to reflect that evolution. So just to provide a little bit of context here, I think when we look at this space, we see that obviously data and analytics has come into increased focus in recent years. We see that most companies out there are increasing their investment in data processing, analytics, and machine learning software with the desire to become more data-driven. And we see that data and the rapid processing of data is a key driver in enabling companies to grasp the opportunities that's presented by digital transformation in order to deliver improved operational efficiencies and hopefully increase competitive advantage. Now, if we look at sort of the analytics, data and analytics space, as I said, we've been covering that for a long time within 451 Research. It's always been an important sector of the market, but the increased significance of it was really brought home earlier this year. We published the results of a survey that we conducted at the end of 2017, our Voice of the Enterprise Digital Pulse, and we asked a group of respondents about their top IT priorities for their organization in 2018. And, it was no surprise to me to see BI and visualization and machine learning and AI and big data processing within, that group of the top responses. What was, pleasantly surprising, given it's an area that I'm responsible for, was that we saw that those three were the top three priorities for 2018, just reinforcing the importance of this space for our clients and the industry at large. And what was really interesting as well was to see there that business intelligence and visualization, which is an established market, was actually the number one priority, and the number one by a significant margin. I think that really speaks to the fact that this is an evolving space. It's continuous. There's a continuous innovation, and we see that through the emergence of obviously things like machine learning and artificial intelligence, but also through the evolution of business intelligence and visualization itself, with the emergence of data science as well. So, just to highlight that, this is a significant area for for our enterprise clients. It's also a significant market, of course, in terms of M&A activity. So this is some data here which was taken from 451 Research M&A Outlook that was published, again, I think at the end of 2017 or very early 2018, but looking at, the anticipated activity in relation to mergers and acquisitions in 2018. And again, we saw that here AI and machine learning was the number one top-ranked theme that respondents expected to drive acquisition activity in the coming year. A full 92% of respondents said they thought that there would be more M&A activity related to AI and machine learning in 2018. 8% saying it would be the same, and nobody thought there would be less activity this year, which is kind of expected. But also, if you look down the list here, we see that big data obviously continues to have a significant impact in terms of merger acquisition activity, at least in terms of the expectations from our M&A Outlook respondents. So, two of the top five M&A activities, anticipated top-ranked M&A activities are within the data processing and analytics market, and as we've already seen, sort of three of the top IT priorities. So this is, continues to be an important space. And as we said, it's a space that's constantly evolving. If we look at sort of the evolution of analytics over recent years, we've seen that, traditionally, we've seen a lot of investment, early investment in terms of reporting and analysis, organizations looking at, what happened and obviously why did it happen. And the early products and services in that space very much IT-driven. IT respondents, creating reports and dashboards for business users and data analysts. More recently, we've seen the evolution of that, obviously the emergence of self-service visualization, user-driven visualization tools that enabled data analysts predominantly, but also business users to actually create their own reports and dashboards by providing them with self-service access to data. If we look at the emergence of data scientists, we see obviously predominantly the tools and technologies there are actually self-service, user-driven. We see statistical modeling, and then predictive analytics and descriptive analytics, and obviously with things like machine learning tools, increasingly actually the generation of insight from that data becoming automated. And as we look ahead, from this point onwards, we see the increased investment and adoption of what we might call intelligence-driven applications, where the results of the analysis of data is actually being embedded in enterprise applications, the users of which could be business users, data analysts, or perhaps even directly to consumers themselves in a consumer-oriented application, and the delivery of what we would call prescriptive analytics. Always stumble over that word. Organizations are actually using analytics and data to try and influence what happens. Now that has some somewhat potential negative connotations, but much of the way we see that being used is actually through delivering sort of targeted offers and recommendations, obviously particularly through sort of customer engagement, and actually, hopefully they're not necessarily used for nefarious reasons, but actually to improve the relationship between a vendor and their customer. So as this market has evolved, so obviously has, our view as a research and analyst company. Obviously, one of the the things we do is try and segment the market and figure out which areas of the market are growing fastest and where there's the most interest. And obviously our segmentation of the market has also evolved. So if we look back at that, as I said, going back actually sort of 10 to 15 years, we've been tracking this space for a long time. And initially, I suppose sort of all of our coverage, you could say, was sort of categorized as just reporting and analytics. Everything fell under one umbrella. As the market evolved, we kind of split that into two areas: business intelligence and reporting, and more sort of advanced analytics tools. And then with the continuous evolution of this space, we separated BI and reporting into traditional BI and reporting and sort of more modern self-service BI and visualization, and we separated advanced analytics into specific focus on machine learning and deep learning tools, and sort of what we call predictive analytics and other. And so these were the segments that we used in terms of mapping the market, figuring out who was in which space, which vendors competed with each other, and also in terms of actually market sizing and trying to figure out which were the key growth areas. And so this was, this is okay. This evolved obviously as the market evolved. But one of the things we saw, sort of last year, and we looked at this space, is that because our categorization had evolved from a very sort of high-level view of the market, we ended up with some of the groups that weren't necessarily as clear as they could be. So sort of, when we have traditional BI reporting, that obviously prompts the question, well, how do you define traditional? And with looking at advanced analytics, predictive analytics, and other use cases, anytime you get a category which is defined by what it's not, or defined by sort of other, it's less than satisfactory. So what we decided to do late last year and for delivery earlier this year was actually go back to the drawing board and completely look afresh at this market, all the vendors in this space, all the products in this space, all the services in this space, and redefine our categorization of the market to better reflect how these tools and technologies are actually being used within the enterprise. So the categorization we came up with at our very high level is data science and analytics, obviously, as you may guess from the title of the presentation here. And obviously, fairly, that segments into data science on one hand and analytics on the other. As we then sort of further segment this market, we can divide each of those into tools and platforms. And I'll go into more detail in a moment in terms of how we define each of these categories, but just to give you the high level for now. So we have analytics tools, analytics platforms, data science tools, data science platforms. And then within that, and this is particularly relevant when we get into actually how this is reflected in our market sizing estimates and growth estimates, we can then actually apply some different categorization and actually sort of converge some of the products and services in the space to look at things like, and these are just examples, machine learning, deep learning as a distinct subcategory, or self-service analytics and visualization as a subcategory. So it was a fairly large effort we went to actually sort of break everything apart and then bring it all back together. But this is now the categorization that we're using to segment the data science and analytics market. It was we presented that in our data management and analytics market map report that was published just, I think it was in June, but anyway, within the last sort of 6 weeks. And I'll provide you with a link to that later, so obviously you'll be able to go in and have access to that and educate yourself on the categorization at your leisure. But so this is the categorization we will be using going forward, both in terms of our market map segmentation, but also in terms of our market sizing estimates. So I'll talk about those in a moment. Before we do that, though, just to give you a little bit more detail in terms of how we delineate between sort of analytics and data science, and particularly between sort of tools and platforms, because obviously that the devil's in the details there. So within relation to analytics tools, what we see is that covers the products and cloud services that are used for what we might consider classic business intelligence use cases involving the creation of reports, dashboards, OLAP-style analysis. But it also embraces specific forms of analysis, such as text analysis, as well as self-service analytics and visualization. We also see, that suggests the visualization of data in various formats and states within a variety of data platforms is also the preserve of analytics tools. And additionally, we see that these products and cloud services can be used to embed analytics within third-party environments to support embedded analysis. So currently, that embedded analytics subsector, if you like, we include within analytics tools. To compare that with data science, we're talking here, we look at data science tools about both experts and non-experts using data science tools to perform the types of analysis beyond the purview of business intelligence and traditional analytics. So clearly, data scientists as a role, the tools they're using falls into this category, but also we talked about non-experts there. So we have seen the emergence of what we might consider citizen data scientists, in inverted commas, using more advanced analytics capabilities, but perhaps with some of that function, the complexity of doing so masked from them. We would include those within the data science tools category as well. So what we see is data science tools can be used to achieve forward-looking insights such as predictions or carry out some other form of advanced analytics, including machine learning-driven analysis. We also see, as I said, that some of those are catering for the growing requirement for self-service by non-experts, by delivering visualizations and drawing on underlying machine learning algorithms to help non-data scientists perform data science use cases. So obviously then back to sort of analytics specifically and comparing analytics tools versus analytics platforms. This is, in terms of analytics platforms, what we see here, that these are products that support broader analytics functionality than standalone analytics tools. So specifically, what we're looking at here is data management as well as business intelligence and analytics being provided within the same platform. Also, analytics platforms, by their nature, tend to be used by more sort of corporate-wide large groups, and in doing so, sort of the data management features that are part of a data platform become essential in terms of embracing that shift towards self-service data preparation as well. So I should say, we'll talk a little bit later, we continue within the data management category to look at data preparation as a standalone area of the market, but clearly increasingly we see analytics platforms are delivering self-service data preparation functionality. So that, to the extent it's delivered within the larger platform, would also be included within this space. So this new breed of analysis platform also provides other capabilities to support governed business intelligence and analysis as standalone environments, and also integrated into business processes and applications. So we increasingly see actually the emergence of what we might call sort of a governed self-service or managed self-service environment, where there is that balance between IT actually delivering a managed environment and the business users and data analysts having sort of free self-service access to that data. And so that is a role that is particularly being delivered by analytics platforms as opposed to obviously individual analytics tools. In relation to data science platforms compared to data science tools, again, a very, broadly similar similar segmentation here. We see that products and services that address the entire data science workflow, from data ingestion and preparation to deployment and ongoing operationalization, would be what we consider data science platforms, as opposed to individual tools which may only address individual aspects of that workflow or pipeline. The inclusion of machine learning algorithms to support data science is also a crucial aspect. Additionally, while some platforms contain homegrown algorithms, the growing majority we see rely on third-party machine learning, embracing increasingly popular programming languages, things like obviously Python, R, and TensorFlow, and other frameworks as well. And specifically providing additional capabilities to enable them to be used by non-experts, and also for deployment in corporate settings. So this is where very much, the old tick box items of security and reliability and other abilities, which are important from an enterprise standpoint, that's where you're looking from a data science platforms perspective, rather than necessarily a data science tools, which are more likely to be used by individuals. Now, I mentioned that this segmentation is reflected not just in our market maps in terms of the segmentation of the market, but also our Total Data Market Monitor service, which provides market sizing and growth estimates for every product and service that we are tracking within the data platforms and analytics team. So specifically in relation to data science and analytics, what we see is that the combined market generated revenue of just under $22 billion in 2017 and is growing at a rate of 10.8% between now and 2022 to reach about $36.5 billion by that point. Now, currently we see that the data science tools and platforms combined represent about 32% of that market. The analytics platforms and tools represent about 68% of the market. And then looking at the individual segments that we track, so analytics tools we track at about currently or within 2017, $7.1 billion and then growing at a compound annual growth rate of 10.5%. Analytics platforms slightly larger at $7.8 billion and growing at a growth rate of 10.7%. Data science tools is by far the smallest of these segments that we're tracking at the moment at actually just under $1 billion. One of the reasons for that is obviously a lot of the products or the projects in this space are actually open source, and so there is not necessarily direct revenue associated with them. What we do see is, again, data science platforms is where you may see a commercially supported version of the open source data science tool, and hence, again, for addressing more sort of large-scale enterprise requirements for adoption of those kind of tools. So the data science platforms category we see at the moment is about $6 billion and is growing at 11.2% compound annual growth rate. I should say actually data science tools, whilst being the smallest, as is not necessarily uncommon, is actually growing the fastest at 11.8%. As I said, we obviously have a lot more detail in relation to the different categories and even beyond that within our Total Data Market Monitor product, and I'll provide some details about how you can get access to more information about that at the end of the presentation here. Before we get to that, though, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the key challenges and innovations that we see in terms of these individual segments. Each of them has their own characteristics. As I said, there is some fluidity between the different categories, but each has its own characteristics. So we look at, say, the challenges related to analytics tools. We see self-service analytics tools, to some extent haven't actually lived up to their moniker. They've been widely popular, widely adopted, but there's sort of question marks about how self-service some of them actually are. There is a level of analytical literacy required, particularly in relation to how to approach that data. So this is an area we see as sort of a work in progress. Definitely some innovation happening in this space, as we talked about, enabling sort of citizen analysts or citizen data scientists to have that complexity increasingly masked from them. From a vendor perspective, though, what we see is that while self-service visualization or just advanced visualization was very much a differentiator a few years ago, but by this point, it's no longer a differentiator, which means that vendors really need to provide fresh capabilities beyond those used for simple visual analysis of data in order to really build a profile and drive interest in them as pure play analytics tools vendors. In terms of innovations in this space, we see natural language processing is now being applied to analysis tools in more mainstream examples, which means that users can query data by typing in natural language phrases and getting insights more easily and intuitively. And also, obviously, we see that the spoken word, actually users being able to literally ask questions of their data. I was going to say being more widely adopted. It's certainly we're seeing the capabilities becoming more mainstream in terms of products and services that are available. Very early stages in terms of adoption, but it's maturing rapidly in terms of the capabilities and technology that are available. So we certainly expect to see rapid adoption of that. Natural language generation is also becoming, a standard part of analytics tools. So users can read short narrative explanations in order to get further clarity on the data presented through dashboards and reports. Actually, obviously NLG not new, but again maturing very rapidly in terms of the level of functionality and the ability of organizations to take advantage of that. I should say, I'm running through these very quickly. Actually, we go into more detail in all of these things in some of our related reports that I'll mention later. So in terms of analytics platforms, some of the key challenges, we see a lot of, different vendors have created analytics platforms through different strategies. So some have built them via acquisition, others through combination of sort of acquisition and homegrown development and expansion. Others have literally started from scratch to build an analytics platform. So from a user perspective, there's an element of sort of buyer beware here. The functionality that any given platform provides and the level to which it's integrated as a truly cohesive stack, does require close inspection and especially in terms of sort of comparing the different products on offer from different vendors. From a vendor perspective, that means that obviously vendors need to ensure as well that the analytics platforms they bring to market are broad enough to meet the requirements of not just the breadth of functionality, but actually the breadth of users that will need access to those products for different use cases. So we talked about data analysts, business users, data scientists, citizens data scientists, IT still having a role clearly in terms of management and governance. And so there is still a requirement here for organizations to deliver that breadth of functionality, but also to ensure that their platforms, whilst they might be able to deliver a single stack, to make sure that they can integrate with existing tools. A lot of organizations obviously have made investment in analytics tools and made investment in multiple analytics tools throughout their organization for different reasons, for different purposes. And so it's incumbent on vendors to ensure that they can work with existing data management and analytics tools if a customer is going to require them to do so, which is every possibility. In terms of innovations in this space, you can make an argument that analytics platforms in and of themselves are, certainly innovative. We see, in delivering that cohesive environments for a range of analytical techniques, both traditional and emerging, and also addressing the variety of different users, and also obviously taking into consideration the need to analyze data both in the cloud and on premises in a governed manner. And this is certainly another area where we're seeing a lot of focus now in the acceptance, obviously, that the data resides on premises in existing environments, but also increasingly in the cloud, and not just in the cloud, but in multiple clouds, and enabling users to get access to data in those multiple environments is key. We're seeing the increasing use of machine learning within analytics platforms as well to aid non-experts in terms of data management, in particular things like data exploration, discovery and data wrangling, and indeed data quality, in terms of enabling those analytics platforms to fulfill a key goal of serving up governed and therefore trusted insights to the users. And this is particularly important, as I talked about earlier, the sort of managed self-service or governed self-service kind of approach, where if you're going to enable self-service for business users and data analysts, increasingly we'll see organizations are looking to take advantage of human, but also machine learning expertise to try and reduce some of the friction and ensure that those end users can trust the data that is presented to them for their self-service use. In terms of data science tools, we see the popularity of data science has led to some rebranding efforts. We could argue perhaps some sort of data science washing is going on. So again, a little bit of, from an end user perspective, buyer beware. Certainly, take a close look at any data science tools you're considering using. Careful evaluation to ensure that they can actually address the advanced forms of analysis that you're looking for. and especially double check, what is available and functioning today and mature today, and what is more of a roadmap or early access feature. We do see that the line between the functionality in data science tools and data science platforms can be fuzzy. This is the segmentation we've come up with. It makes sense for us. We think it makes sense, from our end user clients that we engage with, and indeed the vendors we engage with. But we do recognise that the market is fluid, and that products evolve over time. That has the potential perhaps for confusion from an end user. Is this a data science tool? Is it truly a data science platform? Hopefully, we've explained what we mean between the two. But as I said, we also recognize that products evolve, and that especially in the data science tool space, more advanced management functionality is being added to a lot of those tools over time, to the extent that they could become considered data science platforms. I should say as well, one of the things we do here, so we publish our market maps once a year, update a market map in terms of the categorization, but actually we're constantly updating the underlying segmentation that we use to create that. Every time we do a briefing with a vendor or indeed with an end user, it potentially causes us to reconsider where we categorize a product or service, and so we're constantly evaluating that over time, and as I said, then updated on a yearly basis in terms of the market maps. In terms of innovations in the data science tool space, we certainly see that the use of visualization to insulate users from the underlying complexity has opened the door to data science tools being adopted by a growing number of business personnel, or what we might call citizens data scientists, who need to carry out perhaps some data science use cases within their work, but don't necessarily have those core skills within their repertoire. Also, we see that open source data science tools, things like R and Python and TensorFlow we already mentioned, have made machine learning and deep learning based analysis possible by making it more economically viable. And so we see significant investment in those tools and technologies as well. From a data science platforms perspective, we see that successful data science really requires visibility into the workflow used to create the model, and detailed explanation of that model's internal logic and ongoing performance once it's in production, to ensure that it can be trusted, it's accurate, and that it's performing as it should be. And this is certainly a challenge for data science platforms providers at this point. It's very much a work in progress. We see a lot of investment going into data science management as part of data science platforms, but it's an ongoing challenge. It remains a work in progress. In terms of the use of a single data science platform across organizations, as we said, additionally, those data science platforms need to cater to varied audiences, including potentially business users without data science expertise, obviously data scientists, but also potentially IT users as well, who are still often responsible for managing them. And this really gets to the heart of one of the reasons why we see more focus and innovation in the data science management area, because there needs to be collaboration between data scientists and the IT department in terms of managing the results of that data science development and machine learning development. Once those models get put into production, there's a lot of organization required to continue to monitor and manage them. So that's a key area of focus for a lot of vendors in this space. In terms of innovations, we talked about automated predictive modeling becoming an integral part of the data science stack. That frees up potentially data scientists' time for other tasks, and gives potentially personnel who aren't necessarily data scientists themselves the ability to use some of these underlying functionality to make predictions and do other forms of advanced analysis using the automation provided by machine learning. And also we see that many data science platforms extend the investments that organizations have already made in popular data science tools. I mentioned obviously earlier, a lot of the tools are open source, and this is now a focus as well from a vendor perspective in terms of providing platforms that embrace the open source tools and to some extent sort of extend them with advanced functionality, particularly around management and monitoring and security and other aspects like that. Enable those data scientists to continue to use the tools that they love, but also provide some of that those guarantees that obviously the IT department and the wider business are looking for in terms of sort of security and reliability. So I also wanted to mention, so we talked about obviously this segmentation we've been talking about here was presented in our data management and analytics market map. I did want to point out that's clearly not the only thing we've delivered in that map. Additionally, as well as data science and analytics, we also include corporate performance management within the analytics market map. We haven't done any sort of resegmentation of that, which is why I haven't dwelt on it here, but it's certainly been updated. As I said, we update these on an annual basis. So we're looking there at applications and tools that are focused specifically on financial performance according to key metrics, but also you see that expanding into other areas such as sales, marketing, workforce, and supply chain. So an ongoing important area of the market and very much updated in the latest market map. Also, in addition to analytics, clearly we've got the data management part of that market map report. Again, we didn't specifically sort of look at that this time in terms of a complete recategorization, but it is subject to our sort of ongoing evaluation, as I've mentioned. And one of the things we have done in this latest report is add a new category, which we're calling data science management. So this is specifically in relation to products and services that enable users to operationalize enterprise data science and machine learning projects. So we mentioned that there's functionality from that being delivered in data science platforms, but we also see a standalone opportunity here from a management perspective to address things like continuous integration and deployment, orchestration, monitoring, management, and governance. So finally here, just I've mentioned this a couple of times, to provide you with details of some reports that you might be interested to access and download, which can provide you with more information about what I've been talking about here. So there's obviously the Data Management and Analytics Market Map 2018 itself, which contains the new segmentation I've been talking about. There is a URL there. I think you will have access to these slides. You can click on that. What you can also do is, if you go to our website and search specifically for the report by its number here, 95002, that will take you directly to that report. So yeah, I would encourage you to, if you're interested in further details on what we talked about here, please go and access that report. I've also talked about Total Data Market Monitor, which is through which we provide market sizing and growth estimates for all of the products and services that we cover within the Data Platforms and Analytics channel here at 451 Research. That is a separately purchasable product from 451 Research, but if you again go to click on the link there or go to and search for the report 94950, you'll be able to find at least the high-level details of that, and if you have access to that, you'll be able to get the latest version of the report. And then finally, one of our smaller sort of spotlight reports we published just a week or so ago, From Tools to Platforms, the Ever-Expanding Data Science and Analytics Landscape, which essentially is sort of the written version of this presentation, in effect. So, any details you didn't get, or if you're looking to just evaluate that and say, at your leisure, sort of understand the segmentation as we've described it here, then again, click on the link there, or go to the website 451research.com and search for the report 95252. Finally, before we get to Q&A, just the key takeaways here that we looking at this market space. So we estimate that this combined data science and analytics market generated revenue of just under $22 billion in 2017. So a large and growing market with revenue expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of just under 11% to $36.5 billion in 2022. I said approximately 2/3 of that revenue is generated today by analytics platforms and tools rather than data science platforms and tools, but we do see greater growth in the data science platforms and tools segments over the next 5 years. And finally, I mentioned data science management is really an emerging area that we think will be integral to the expanded adoption of data science beyond experimentation and into operationalized production. I talked about, we see that as a standalone opportunity with standalone functionality, but there's also an opportunity that we see vendors addressing in terms of the expansion of data science platforms to address this requirement also. And lastly, before we go to Q&A, just to mention here, this, well, as in any area that we cover within 451 Research, it's an area we're certainly interested to help clients with, whether they are enterprise clients or, vendor clients. There's a couple of areas which we can do that, and we do that, with our existing clients. So sort of more internally focused in terms of assessing and evaluating strategic opportunities in new market segments, in terms of identifying and assessing potential ecosystem for or channel partners or even potential acquisition targets, or developing technology roadmaps and shortlists of technology vendors. Those, as I say, are examples of kind of sort of custom research projects and advisory projects that we do with organizations today. And then also more sort of externally facing, so we can help to hopefully create compelling research-based content to provide market education and build brand awareness, developing positioning and messaging strategies, identifying and prioritizing target customer segments, and also engaging customers and prospects in interactive events, things like webinars, speaking engagements, and moderated roundtable discussions. So, if what we've been talking about here is of interest to you, and you can think about, opportunities we think we might be able to help you, then please, reach out to us. As you said, we'd love to help, and it's something we're already doing with a lot of existing clients, but we're always happy to do more of. You've got hopefully our details in general, but my details are here. If, anything, any questions you got or any potential follow-ups in relation to what I presented, please do reach out to me. Always great to hear from our clients and non-clients alike. So with that, I will pause for a moment and see if we got any questions. And just happy to take any questions. So any questions from the audience, please complete those in the fields there, and we'll turn to those now. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. I'm sure I'm not alone in saying great presentation, very informative. Just two questions that I want to tackle since they're more, not too technical. One was, can we access the data? The answer is yes. Through any of those links that Matt pointed out during his presentation, that is where those are the products that the data comes from. But if you're currently a client and would like to access that data, I would suggest reaching out to your account manager or apply for a trial if you're a non-client to check out our brand new research dashboard and explore some of our data there. Additionally, someone pointed out to me that not anticipating the animations in the presentation, that there is the missing an innovations column in a couple of the slides, and I'll work on correcting that and get everyone that attended today and downloaded the attachment. I'll connect with them and make sure they get a updated PDF. So other than that, our first question for you, Matt, is do you foresee classic BI tools to incorporate machine learning features in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that is already happening today, and as I mentioned, even though we've just completed this categorization, it is definitely fluid, and we see the expansion of functionality across the board, and so we continue to evaluate products and services. I would say that I think we draw a distinction therefore between who ultimately the end user is of the product and what they're using it for. So if we think about some of the classics of analytics tools and platforms products, yes, machine learning capabilities are being made available within them, but it's very much sort of packaged machine learning functionality for a very specific purpose, as I said, sort of really masking that complexity behind the scenes and for targeted at that specific data analyst or business user rather than data scientist. So yes, we already see that happening. I think that will continue to happen. I think the vendors in that space are having to be very careful because they don't want to sort of oversell what they're delivering and create confusion by having people think the ability to access a particular sort of machine learning model or algorithm means it is a machine learning product. So yeah, they're being a bit cautious about that, but they're certainly delivering that where it makes sense to do so, especially in terms of masking that complexity and making it a lot easier for users to benefit from those more sort of advanced analytics capabilities.
Next question is, would it be correct to say machine learning can be applied to perceptive and descriptive as well? It seems, yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely, yeah. That's on that slide there is one of those cases where it becomes difficult within the sort of the two-dimensional workspace within PowerPoint to actually illustrate that. Yeah, there's more of a sort of a three-dimensional loop going on there. Yes, absolutely. I'd say machine learning could definitely be applied to prescriptive and descriptive as well. And yes, I agree. See the rest of the question talking about the line between statistical modeling and machine learning is blurring. So yeah, we definitely can see that as well, and increasingly, when we look at data science platforms, they're delivering that combination of functionality that users can take advantage of, for a very specific purpose. So absolutely, yeah, that will continue to be the case.
Can you speak to some emerging vendors in the data science platform market?
Can we speak about them? Well, yeah, yes. I'm sort of a little bit cautious to name specific names, because every time we do that, then there'll be somebody who will get annoyed that we haven't mentioned them. But certainly, when we see, there are some very established names in that space, including obviously companies like SAS Institute and some of the larger incumbent vendors as well. In terms of some of the emerging vendors in that space, we certainly see companies like Dataiku and DataRobot and obviously Data Science just recently acquired by Oracle, as very interesting and emerging vendors in that space. So yeah, those are just some that immediately leap to mind. So not wishing to sort of favor them over any others, but yeah, those are some of the key players that we see that are emerging in that space and driving innovation. Yeah. And I should say, obviously, if you go to the market map, this is a good point. If you do link through to our market map, what you will be able to see is all of the vendors that we consider within the data science platform market, and that's a list of all of them there. And what we're doing a lot of at the moment is obviously then engaging in more detail with clients in terms of trying to understand, well, what are the differences between them, who's particularly innovating in specific areas, and there's a lot of devil in the details in terms of different functionality and different approaches to the market. So yeah. First step, obviously, perhaps look at the market map, and then we're always happy to take calls from clients in terms of drilling into more detail on that.
Great. You mentioned data science management as a standalone category, but also data science management as a feature of data science platforms. Can you clarify?
Yeah, so this is definitely, as I said, it's an emerging priority area where we see it is going to drive a lot of innovation. I think it will drive a greater adoption of, data science, particularly in terms of taking it from experimentation into production. And so it's being addressed both by some of the data science platform vendors, some of that I literally just mentioned in particular, are looking to add monitoring and management capabilities to their platforms to help organizations do that. There are also a number of vendors, which we've just written about in recent weeks as well, that see this as a standalone opportunity. In other words, yes, the data scientists want to use their chosen environment or tools to create the models, but actually, then it's sometimes, as we said, often actually the the IT users that actually have to take care of monitoring and management and work and collaborate with those data scientists in terms of supporting those environments once they go into production. So there are also vendors that we see, as I say, we include within the data management category that are addressing that. Over time, I expect those will continue to blur a little bit, but I think we do see a distinct segmentation between those that are addressing it on data science management on a standalone basis versus those that have data science management functionality within their larger data science platforms.
Do you expect continued convergence of analytics platforms and data management functionality?
Yeah, so well, as just mentioned, yeah, sort of continuation of that. Yes, on the data, we see that on the on the data science platform side, but yes, also on the analytics platform side. Arguably, actually, whilst we categorize certain vendors within, specifically as analytics platforms, obviously, as we talked about, what distinguishes the platform from analytics tools is very often the management functionality, and we're seeing an increased amount of management functionality being delivered into those platforms. And I talked about sort of the shift towards sort of managed or governed self-service. So yes, absolutely, we expect that to continue. It's not necessarily something that traditionally the analytics platforms vendors have wanted to necessarily highlight, because I think they were somewhat cautious about confusing users in terms of whether they were really management, data management providers or true analytics providers. But increasingly they are highlighting that, because they see that particularly in terms of strategic enterprise-wide adoption initiatives, enterprises really are looking for that management functionality. So I think those two things. Yes, we see there's a greater focus on that functionality, and also it is maturing and companies adding more and more capabilities in that area. Arguably, I think at some point we'll sort of see even perhaps the evolution beyond what we would currently call an analytics platform to something else that addresses the broader stack. But we'll leave that for another time.
Last question I have, unless anyone else wants to enter another one in the questions from the audience section in your BrightTalk platform, is what are the primary business use cases you see for machine learning?
Okay, yeah, and this is an area actually that we've obviously focusing a lot, in particular in relation to machine learning within the data science and data science and analytics coverage. We're looking specifically at the tools and the platforms themselves in relation to machine learning. But actually, we have a wider focus. One of the founders of 451 Research, Nick Patience, has been focused a lot recently in the last couple of years. And well beyond before that, but especially in the last couple of years, on artificial intelligence and machine learning, looking at different use cases. And we actually have a survey specifically in relation to that, which the results should be coming out any day now, certainly within the next week or so. And yeah, just pulled up the results of that here. So some of the key sort of business reasons that we see for the adoption of machine learning are things like forecasting, as you might expect, in terms of sales and reduction in inventory, but also security is definitely a key area, not actually that far behind forecasting, and also customer service and customer support, particularly in terms of recommendations. And the last one I'll call out just here is marketing analysis. Obviously, marketing a key segment of any organization in terms of adoption of analytics historically, and that continues to be the case, especially for AI and machine learning. And so, yeah, things like attrition, segmentation, lifetime value is another key area as well. But, there's others beyond that in terms of sales and fraud detection and workforce utilization. But, yeah, those are the top sort of 4 or 5.
Great. We had another question come in. When will data science and analytics be so blurred it would just be one category?
Yeah, that is a good question, and certainly one that we pondered in relation to sort of doing this segmentation, almost like, well, should we wait and to sort of, leap forward, another step later on. I do think, though, I've already talked about, there are distinct users for that, but as we see more and more data science products that are targeted at, as we talked about, citizen data scientists or data analytics users, those lines definitely will continue to blur. That's definitely true. And as I said, this is definitely fluid. We continue to reconsider the different products and services in this space. So yeah, at some point down the line, probably, I think it's going to take several years before that happens in terms of that true functionality, in terms of really a single platform to address very individual specific use cases and user requirements. But yeah, we'll definitely reconsider the segmentation as we move forward. It's definitely we definitely, I'd agree, we see the market moving in that direction. There's a distinction between tools and platforms, but there is ongoing convergence between analytics and data science. So we'll consider that as we go. So yeah, definitely watch this space.
All right, great. If there are no other questions for Matt today, we'll sign off here. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I will make sure to get everyone who attended today the revised PDF attachment to correct for that lacking innovations column, either later today or early tomorrow. Additionally, please leave us some feedback in the feedback from audience section somewhere in your BrightTalk platform. It really helps us make sure you're getting the value you want out of these webinars, and it also helps our presenters, helps me as well. So, just drop us a little bit of feedback, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, Matt, and thank you, everyone, for attending.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks.